Hello fellow travelers, and welcome to another episode of In-Depth Boss Guide series, where we take a closer look at the VAT's major threats. I'm too lazy to be awesome, and this time we are learning about Lupus Boreas challenge, where we fight Andrius, also known as the Wolf. First thing I want to mention is that Southern TP is a complete scam. It's way easier and faster to run to the boss from a domain on the north, especially if you have fast characters like Sayu or Yelan. Fight starts with a short cutscene, which you can skip if you switch characters right after you start it with very precise timing. Boss will still be immune for its duration, but you can start hitting him to stack buffs or debuffs or just get some energy. Andrius is immune to cryo and animal. Also, getting hit by his cryo attacks will apply cryo to your character and will slow you down. If this slow is bothering you, you can get rid of it by applying other elements to yourself using specific skills like bursts of Bennett or Jin, or by creating pyro shields which also briefly apply pyro to you and cleanse cryo status. Boss has two phases, and each phase has its own set of attacks. Andrius attacks heavily depend on your position, thus in phase 1, if you stand close to him, he will only use either slash or spinning slash. First one is easily avoidable with dashing iframes, or you can just dash away from it. Second one is much more annoying because you can't avoid it with dashing iframes, so if you want to avoid damage, you'll have to run away or use burst animation. However, if you keep your distance, boss will use charge or leap instead. The counter will be the same though. You can avoid charge with dashing iframes or dash away from its path. And for leap, you'll have to get out of its area because you can't avoid it with dashing iframes. And if you somehow happen to be far enough behind the wolf, he might attack you with tail sweep. In this phase, rather than trying to hit you with the tail itself, boss shoots several icicles at you and you just have to dodge the shots. But be aware that projectiles don't disappear and instead they turn into ice shards which explode after several seconds, so they will hit you if you stay close to them. When you drop Andrius down to almost half HP, before going into phase 2, there will be a short interlude. He covers the outer portion of arena with ice, which deals damage if you stand on it, and he runs around it. Then he charges at you twice and finally leaps in the center of arena, transitioning into second phase. If you are stuck in phase 1 for too long, this whole sequence will also happen after 2 minutes into the fight. And if in 2 more minutes after that you still don't get Andrius down to required HP threshold, he will do it again and will forcefully go into phase 2 with all remaining HP. During phase 2, outer portion of arena will still be covered in ice. Technically, you can destroy ice shards to remove it, but they will reappear and there's plenty of room to work with anyway, so don't bother and just stay away from it. Phase 2 always starts with Icicle Storm. This attack doesn't deal damage itself, but it will continuously summon icicles on top of you for some time after cast. You can't avoid them using dashing iframes, so you'll have to dash away from them. You can also use jumps for this. It's less safe option, but it allows you to save dash charges and stamina. If you stand in front of Andrius, he will try to hit you with either ice waves or wind blades. These attacks are very similar and you will have to dash left or right to avoid them. But on ice waves, you want to do it as fast as possible if you want to avoid being affected with cryo. And on wind blades, you might bump into another wave after dashing if you stand far enough. So it's better to move slightly left or right to stay between 2 waves. If you are in melee range, Wolf also uses slash in front of him. It's the same attack we've seen in phase 1, but this time it deals animal damage. and if you are close but not in front of him, he'll try to hit you with a tail sweep, which now just deals damage around Andrius instead of creating projectiles. Every 2.5 minutes or so, boss also uses Howl and unleashes a series of animo waves. The further you stand from the boss, the more damage you'll take from them. If you stay close, this attack deals almost no damage and you can just keep dealing damage yourself. But if you have another element on your character, for example if you get hit by another attack before, Howl becomes much scarier. When you drop Andrius down to about 15% of HP, he starts summoning phantom wolves. As soon as they spawn, they lock onto your current position and then jump there dealing damage. To avoid them, you'll have to keep moving. Wolves start spawning at a rate of 1 wolf per 4 seconds and gradually spawn faster up to 1 wolf per half a second. After that, it will be nigh impossible to keep fighting and dodging them, so let's see what we could use to make the fight easier and win before that. In terms of elements, everything is simple. Just avoid using Cryo and Animo since boss is immune to them. In phase 1, it's better to keep your distance if you want to avoid taking damage, so ranged characters would be more efficient. But if you prefer melee characters, safe play is possible but will take too much time, so it's better to either bring some shielding or healing and tank the damage using dashes to avoid knockback, or use burst animation iframes to avoid damage. This way you will be able to stay close and push more damage. But phase 2 is actually easier if you use melee characters. If you stick to left or right side of the boss, he will often rotate, and since melee characters usually move towards their target with attacks, you will move slightly with the boss, which makes dodging wolves or icicles a little easier. Also, both melee attacks are easily avoidable with iframes. But if you keep the distance, you'll have to deal with ranged attacks, both of which require quite precise movement to dodge them. There are no characters who would really stand out, but remember that besides shields and healing that can speed up the process, you can remove slowing effect of cryo status from your characters by applying other elements to yourself. And also, pre-placed abilities might sometimes work worse here since boss likes to move a lot. There are no achievements you can earn in this fight, but there is something else I want to show you. As I mentioned before, the first phase is much easier with ranged characters. But if you still struggle, you can climb onto this ledge and Wolf will have no idea what to do, so you can simply shoot him from there. You can keep doing this for phase 2 as well, but it will be harder because some attacks can reach you and your damage will be reduced because of long distance. If you want to keep going, it's better to climb higher onto this bit to get away from frozen ground. Then you'll need a pretty good shield to tank icicle storms. Zhongli is obviously the best for this, but Diona or Noelle are good enough as well. Trying to dodge the icicles is risky because fight will reset if you walk too far. You can do it with just enough healing, but it will be slower because you can't keep shooting during storms without a shield. Howl can also reach you there, but you can quickly step backwards a little to get out of range and come back right when it ends to stay in the fight. And phantom wolves shouldn't be a problem as long as you stay on the edge facing the boss. Wolves spawn on available terrain in front of your character, so if there's none, they will spawn under the boss instead. Anyway, that's all for now, fellow travelers. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.